All right, everyone. I think we've got, for the most part, everyone who's going to be joining this session. Again, my name is Griffin here in the Professional Services Department. If you have any questions, for those of you who have just joined, feel free to use the chat panel. We're going to go ahead and default everyone for muted for now. Just so we can kind of get through the features, we can double back and kind of touch base on any specific questions to the features that I've gone over, or if you have any just general questions about the service portion of the web application, I'd be happy to go over that as well. But I would recommend using the chat panel just to kind of type in what you'd like. And I believe you can even kind of raise your hand in that section too. So if you have a question, you can do so. But usually we're going to leave that until the end just so it's uninterrupted and we can address all the questions together. Okay. And again, thank you all for your time today. I know it's last couple of days before the end of the year. Everyone's just ready for that. But let's knock this out. And again, like I said, it will be recorded and we can always refer back to it. It should be posted on the Motility website. All right, so you should be seeing, I've shared my screen here. I've got a demo version up of our web application. It's attached to the same database that the desktop version of the software would be. So, for those of you familiar with the sales portion, if I'm a salesperson, my hot contacts here would match my hot contacts in the desktop portion of Infinity. Same thing goes for pretty much every single other item on this listing. But today, we're not focused so much on the sales as we are on the service tools. So we have a few things that we can show here, one of which would be the way that the advisors in the system are using the web application, and then how mechanics would be using it in a similar manner, okay? And to boil it down to probably its simplest terms, your advisors are going to be writing ROs, adjusting existing ROs through this screen, and the mechanics will be using this to clock in, make their parts request, take photos, and attach them to the work order, and then review their flag times. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And I'm actually going to run this by starting a new repair order and then working our way down through that repair order and all the different things you can add to it, the things you cannot do to it from this portion of the software. And then we'll go in and review it. How do we recall that invoice? And then I'll show you how to batch it out to a technician to then, dispatch it out to a technician to then begin working on it. Okay. So we'll go ahead and start here with the new RO button. And from here, what we're going to do is we will basically pick up the first thing we want to do is choose whether it's a company or an individual or whoever is going to be this work order is for. So we'll go ahead and start that by picking a name. I usually search by my last name, Greer, but that's going to be a last name of the customer in there. So I'm going to do the same thing, search up my customer name, and it's going to pull up all the entity records with that particular customer. Hopefully you don't have as many duplicates as I do. But being this is our demo environment, we end up kind of creating multiple records. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one here. It's got a phone number and an address, an email address. And once I've clicked on that customer, now it's going to show me a listing of every vehicle that that customer owns. So this guy has quite the fleet of units, ranging from pickup trucks to different various towables, and even some motorized on here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this Jayco J-Flight. This is the vehicle he is bringing in now. If a customer does not have a vehicle listed here that they're bringing, you can add a new unit to them. Now, generally, this is only going to be the case if you use our deal desking system and you do a deal with a particular customer or entity, it'll automatically attach their vehicle to their record. So this is usually going to be units that the customer did not purchase from your dealership, probably bringing in for the first time. So if there's no record for it, it's simple. You just click on this top box up here, put in the year, make, model, vehicle type, any additional information, and then you can choose it for your work order. But like I said, we're going to go ahead and use this Jayco for now. So I don't know why it's a vehicle type of pickup. That's not right. That should be travel trailer. But continuing forward, so we've got our vehicle chosen. We have our customer up here at the top. You can see we can get this customer's phone number here to text them, otherwise to call them, or I could do the search to pull up a different entity. Maybe I chose the wrong one, so I could search up the correct one. But we've got our vehicle here. If I need to change it, again, you can just click on the unit and change it to the one that it needs to be. Otherwise, we'll just leave that for now. You have a sort option, which is going to show you the difference between your internal work, your warranty work, and your customer pay work. So maybe I only want to see customer pay jobs. I would click that versus internal versus warranty. But for the most part right now, we're starting brand new line items on this work order, so we don't have anything to sort yet. We also have some RO tools here that we'll go through after we've created some line items. But first, let's go ahead and start. So here's our document number. This would be our service invoice or a repair order number that you would find in the desktop version, and the service tag number, if any. And you can apply that with the RO tools, but we'll do that in a moment. So I'm just going to create a few generic repair lines for this work order. Let's call this, I know we're using a towable example, but I'm going to use just some generic stuff like a winterization. We'll leave that on there. The repair type and repair code, for those of you that use repair codes, you can simply search up your code here. That will automatically force things like billing rate, payable and billable hours assigned to the technician, and can even standardize your complaint cause and correction. So I would suggest, if possible, using repair codes. That way every repair order written for winterization's got the same pricing, the same complaint cause correction, and it's a bit standardized and consistent in the system's reporting. But if you don't use repair codes, that's fine. You would come down here. Well, this winterization, it's going to be service retail. Hopefully you do not have as many item types as we do here in our demo, but you would pick the associated repair type and move on. Cause and correction. These can be filled out either by the mechanic or maybe your repair code would automatically apply here. But then we're going to go ahead and state how much we're going to bill for this job and how much we're paying. So maybe we have a tech that can do winterization in 2 hours, and we're going to go ahead and pay him 2 hours for that. So we'll go ahead and save this line item. It'll remind you that it's been successfully saved up there. I can hit Save Changes up here as well. Does the same thing. And at this point, that job has now been assigned. So now these little arrows here just increase or decrease the size of the field so you can see more information in there. But that's really it. So now that we've saved, we can go ahead and go back. And we've got our repair line 1. Okay, to do an additional repair, you can see C, it's customer retail or retail. I could put an internal line item on there. If I wanted to, maybe we do an internal inspection that we don't bill out to the customer. We leave it service internal. It's just cost associated with letting us do our work. So I'll do a service internal line. We'll do maybe a state inspection or something that's 0.5 hours. Or maybe, like I said, we're not going to bill it out to the customer. Well, it's internal, so it won't. And then 0.5 to the tech. So he spends half an hour doing the inspection on the unit once we're finished maybe with the winterization job. So we'll go ahead and save that one. Same thing. Then you can hit cancel, go back. Now I've got 2 lines, my winterization and my inspection line. And as you can see, you can just continue forward with more line items. Now, you may ask, well, there hasn't been a chance or a place to put parts onto a work order. Currently, as it stands, there is the parts version of, or parts portion of the work order and the service writing still needs to be done through the desktop version of Infinity. So while you can begin a work order, and generally what this is going to be used as is, let's say you've got a tablet and you've got a check-in process. Well, maybe one of your service advisors or writers walks out, does a 20-point inspection on the unit, writes up what they see wrong. They can take photos, which we'll talk about here in just a moment with the RO tools. But they could basically get the work order written up. But the detail, like the parts themselves, maybe we have to order some parts from the work order, that's all going to be done through the main desktop version of Infinity. Now, I do believe that in the future, we will add this part functionality to our web application or the web version, but currently this is just simply for writing up the job lines and assigning technicians. Okay, but now going into the RO tools like we talked about, you have a few options here. We have accept signature. So maybe what you have here is a customer is you're doing the walk of their unit and you wrote up what you saw wrong, maybe started a couple job lines, and then you want to have them sign off on what you've inspected to let them know, hey, you've seen the damages that the unit had previously, and they're signing off on knowing, that you've notated those. So you can click accept signature. It will show you the service disclaimer. They can type here, or they can actually, on a tablet, you can sign your your signature across there, and it should capture the image. Okay, so I will hit accept. I will sign that I accept. Don't mind my awful penmanship with my mouse here, and I can hit save signature. Okay, so that's an easy way to capture a, hey, here's your estimate or your quote out for what we're going to charge potentially for this work. Now, keep in mind that the quote does not have parts added or anything, but at least, a written authorization that, yes, you've seen the unit, you've done an inspection, and this is what you've notated as far as needed repairs. Back to RO tools, invoice pictures we talked about. So if I click on invoice pictures, if I had a camera attached to my computer, or let's say I was on a tablet or a phone, it would automatically have my camera available here, and I could go ahead and just start taking pictures of the unit, of damages that are existing, whatever you want to take, maybe just a shot of the unit with the service tag number in the front dash to show that you've got the right service tag, whatever you want to take pictures of. Also, if you're on a phone or a tablet that has photos stored already, maybe you took the photos prior to pulling up the app and starting the work order, you can always add pictures from your library or your photo library. So don't have to take the photos right then and there. You'll always have the option to add pre-existing photos that you already have taken in the past. Okay, I'm going to hit my little back arrow up here. That's just going to take me back to my previous screen. And I could have done that when I was in the repair order too. You saw when I was in like job line 2. You don't have to hit cancel changes to go back. You can just hit the back button. They both do the same thing. Okay, we have changed service tags. So we haven't given this a service tag yet. You can see that by the no tag here. That's fine. We'll hit change service tag. Let's call this 12345. And now it has been assigned a service tag. Pretty simple. Continuing on, we've got the ability to assign a mechanic and to view modify alert. Now we'll assign a mechanic in a second, and then what we'll do is we'll jump over as though we were a mechanic to see what that's like, to show what they see when they've been dispatched out work orders. But before we do that, I just want to show you the alert section. This is a functionality where basically I can just say this customer is very irritable. Proceed with caution. Okay, maybe something relevant to the work order, maybe something specific to the parts that need to be ordered, whatever the alert may be. What an alert does now is, let's go ahead and save this. And I'm going to grab my document number here. I'm just going to write it down so I've got it. It's 124, and not that I couldn't find it by just my stock number or my customer last name, but just to make it easy, 124092. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get out of this work order, okay, because we put our alert on there and we left it. And you can see that by going back to RO Tools and viewing it. But what this alert does, for those of you who have not used it, let's say I get out of this work order. So let's go back to our main screen. So now I'm in my main service invoicing screen. Well, luckily for us, at the very front there's the work order we just generated, right, 124092. And when I click into that work order, the alert is the first thing that pops up, and always will be until someone clears it. Now, I don't have the functionality. Now, I have the permissions to clear it here. I could actually back this out and save it and get rid of it. Not all users will. In fact, most technicians, most non-service manager type employees would not have access to clear alerts. That's because you want that to stay there if it's relevant to the repair or just something that needs to be known prior to getting into this work order. And it will always stay there until someone clears it out and saves it. Okay, so however your staff or your team wants to use the alerts is up to you, but it's a great way to make sure that if there's something very pertinent to this repair order or this customer, you can make sure that whoever's working this work order sees that alert. Okay, so that's really the last of the functionality on this tab. We do have a show invoice signatures, which is simply just going to show the signature that was captured earlier. I erased mine back out so you don't see it there, but I could always put it back in by hitting accept signature and go ahead and putting my signature on here through the tablet. But basically, the remaining portion of this repair order is the assigned mechanic, right? Basically the most important part, how we dispatch this out to our techs. So I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I'm going to hit admin or RO Tools, assign mechanic. I have a list of mechanics populated by all the mechanics listed as one in the employee information module. So anyone who's checked off as a mechanic will show. And And I've got here my admin account. That's the one I'm logged in as. So I'm going to choose, do I want to assign both jobs, or do I want to assign just one to this mechanic? You have the option. You don't have to do all, but you can do one or the other, both or none. So I'm going to go ahead and assign out both of these line items. I want this tech admin to do both the winterization and the inspection. So I'm going to hit assign to jobs. It's been completed, and now that's it. So as a writer, you know, I can't really do anything with parts. And at this point, if this is everything that this work order needs aside from the parts, I've done my portion. I can get back out of here. I can use this invoicing list to review pre-existing invoices. Otherwise, I could start a new RO, but that would basically be my service writing. Now, before we get back to the dispatching side, I do want to show you that other part of the service tools, which is, again, service invoices. And we were just looking at this, but just to see how you'd get to it normally. If you're looking up existing invoices, you're going to choose, is it a quote or is it an invoice? And for those of you who are not familiar, the only difference between a quote and an invoice really in our system is the status that the invoice is in. So as long as it is in an open status, it is an open invoice. If it's still in a quote or estimate status or some sort of whatever you know, the name is of the internal estimate status that you use, that's how you would find between those. So, but essentially another, you know, good thing to note is there's no relieved parts on quotes and there's no mechanic hours signed. Once you've assigned hours or relieved parts, the system requires the invoice to be open. So you won't see any of those relieved items on quotes. The system's going to force it to a invoice. So we'll search invoices. I can search by a variety of items. I can search by the stock number, the customer's name, the mechanic assigned to that work order. You know, maybe I want to get a list of everything I've assigned out to admin. So I could do just that. I could say admin, or I'm sorry, mechanic, and then admin. And this is going to give me a listing of all the invoices tagged to that technician. He's got a lot of work to do. He's very far behind. So pretty simple though. The screen can be sorted. So maybe I want to see all my retail information first. Now we're seeing every work order with at least one retail job on it. Now, if I click on the warranty icon, now I'm going to see job or work orders with at least one warranty line item on it. Again, just some filtering. But yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Whatever you're looking for, just pick the right criteria, search, and once you found the invoice you're looking for, you simply click on it, and you're back to the screen we were on, where we were showing where a new invoice is started. So the only difference that we see on this repair or this work order as to the other one is we actually see this approved line item. So what this means is this is a warranty line item that was marked as approved on the work order side, probably in the desktop version, to let us know that, hey, we can go ahead and do this oil change that is warranty work for whatever reason. So, but good notification tools. So you're going to see some changes here in the repair lines, basically whether the job is started, whether the tech is done, whether the work is still in process, and we're going to show all that through the dispatching side of this now. Okay. I haven't seen any questions pop up in the chat panel or anything. If you do have any related to this side of it, feel free to put them into the chat panel. I'd be happy to answer them at the end, but you know, while we're talking about it, you know, anything related to the service writing or the advisor portion of this, feel free to go ahead and plug in. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and continue on to the dispatching side. Okay. So we'll go ahead and go back. And go back one more time. If you see the little 3 line items here, this is actually, think of it as a shortcut menu. So maybe I wanted to get right to dispatching. You don't have to go to this main menu. You can hit the little 3 line items and go right to mechanic clock in and out, which is the mechanic side of things. I do see that question. Is there another one of these? Our advisor's screen saying waiting on host, it wouldn't let them in. I do not know if we're hosting another advisor's features, but we are recording these and we're going to be posting them on our website. So there should be an email blast after these sessions that goes out that's going to contain a link to all of the webinars we've done, and you'll be able to reference this recording and go back through. Of course, you're welcome. So yeah, anyone who wasn't able to make this session, I know it's a busy, last end of the year. I'm sure some of the service departments are really kind of crank every unit out they can through the end of the year. So anyone who is not able to attend, of course, yes, we will post these, and you can always reference back to them. Sometimes it's nice too, the recording. You can take it at your own pace, go to lunch, come back, however you need to do it. So. But again, on this shortcut bar here, you can see you've got all the features or the functionality of the buttons here. The only differences here is you do have a log out button. Let's say I am not, I'm logging out of my tablet. Maybe we share a tablet between 3 technicians. I can log out and then have one of my colleagues go ahead and punch in their credentials. And again, this is the same username and password that they would be using on the desktop version of Infinity. They're one and the same. So whatever that information or the credentials are on the desktop, it's going to be the same to log into the mobile version. So I'll log back in here. The only other thing I didn't mention over here in the 3 bars section is there's actually a time clock. This is not more commonly known. A lot of folks don't know this is here, but you can actually use this if you're utilizing the time clock functionality of Infinity. You can click on the time clock here, and it will allow me to clock in or out. So currently I'm clocked in. I can't click on that. That's letting me know I'm still in. I can clock out. And then if I were a salesperson, I could actually use my Do Not Disturb settings to opt out of any lead rotations I'm in. So maybe I'm out to lunch and I don't want any leads that are getting assigned pushed to my login. You can opt out of specific rotations. Or maybe while you're at lunch, you still want to stay in those rotations even though you're out. Well, then just don't mark Do Not Disturb and you'll still get leads assigned out to you based on however your dealership does that. But you'll probably hear about more of those or have heard about those in the CRM functions of the mobile application. This is not for mechanic jobs. We're about to do that in the mechanic clock in and out. This is just a simple, hey, I'm in work at 9 a.m. in the morning. I leave work at 5 p.m. This has nothing to do with the jobs themselves. This is just a simple punch in, punch out for the dealership as a whole. So you'll see here in just a moment, the clock in, clock out on the jobs themselves runs the time specific to a job. This is just in and out for the day. So, but this is good because if your dealership does use our time clock, you can just start using our mechanic efficiency reports to show, hey, I've got a mechanic who, was clocked in for 8 hours today and he worked on 7 hours worth of repairs. So he was close to 100% of his shop efficiency because most of the time he spent here was spent working on vehicles. So definitely good to utilize if you use it. Otherwise, if you use punch cards or any biometric, time clock punching in, that's fine too. But just did want to show you that there. So, okay, so now let's get into the actual clocking in, clocking out of jobs themselves by the mechanics that have been assigned that work. So just to get you back to where we were, I am logged in as the admin user that's set up as a mechanic, and we just dispatched out the first 2 job lines or the only 2 job lines of that work order, the winterization line and the inspection line. So now as a mechanic, I would be clicking on mechanic clock, and the system should list out for me all the work orders I've been assigned. Now, it's going to list them in an invoice numerical order currently. So the oldest invoice that I've been assigned is up here at the top, right? We have invoice number 121100. I have no idea when this was assigned, but because it's the oldest invoice in my list, that's why it's up at top. And you can see by date created. Maybe I want to see by dispatching calendar. I want to see what is priority as to today, right? Because if you use the dispatching calendar, you're going to be dispatching work out by the hours. So maybe I've got something assigned at 10 a.m., then another item assigned at 1 p.m. If you want to look at the sort that way, you would run it by dispatching calendar. And oh, look at that. The most recently assigned work that we just did that was probably dispatched for right this very moment was our work order for the winterization and the inspection. So again, depending upon the sorting is basically what priority you want the mechanics to work on their items. And if your shop does use our dispatching calendar, this is probably going to be the most accurate, in order reference to the calendar. So I think they're still working on getting a version of the calendar over into the mobile application. Currently, there is not one. So right now, you would still be referencing the dispatch calendar in the desktop version of Infinity. And just kind of as a heads up, what I've seen in my travels, and I've visited quite a variety of dealerships, you will find that sometimes the shop will have a kind of a big screen or a one monitor where the dispatching calendar is left up. And techs can go up and reference that dispatch calendar, but then they'll use their individual tablets to actually punch in and out of the work. So definitely seen tons of varieties of that, but sometimes they'll just use a whiteboard and write out everything that's scheduled out for the day, or sometimes they'll print out our dispatching calendar and put it on a cork board out in the shop, and they can reference that. However you're doing your scheduling, it's just going to change how you sort the listing here. But we'll go ahead, and I'm a mechanic. I've been assigned this work order, and this is my next available. This needs to be done today because we do see the tag number in this JCO J flight in the bay that I'm working out of right now. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that work order. So as a mechanic, we're going to have details down here at the bottom. Now, you can see my details are pretty vague because there's not a lot of info on my JCO J flight when someone put this into the system. But you can see you get the lot location, where's the unit on our lot, the color, the odometer reading, license plate number, the VIN, secondary VIN, if any, when the unit was sold to this customer, and the in-service date or the start date of the warranties. If you do use our deal desking portion of our software and you sell contracts or warranty contracts, and those, it was done through the deal, that manufacturer warranty or extended warranty information will actually be stamped onto the unit. So we can actually see here that Mr. Greer, his JCO J flight, had an extended warranty up until June of this year. So, this can kind of trigger questions of, well, hey, are you interested in any, additional warranty coverage after your manufacturer warranty has expired? So just a bit of detail there, not too much information, but again, it can be helpful. But as a mechanic, I can see that none of the repairs have been started. We can show it's not completed. So I'm going to go ahead and start with line number 1, my winterization line. So as a mechanic, I would go ahead and punch onto this line. I can modify the complaint cause and correction if I do have the proper permissions. So I can go ahead and say it's cold. That's why we're doing the winterization, and the correction will be winterization complete. Probably can get more detailed, but we'll leave it at that. So mileage in, mileage out for non-towable. This is a JCO J flight, so being towable, we don't really track the mileage here. And the repair status. So really we've, and again, changing the complaint cause and correction, you may standardize it so your techs never have to change those fields, in which case that's fine. So possibly the first thing that a mechanic would be adjusting on this work order line would be the repair status, and then whether they're punching into it or not. So as a mechanic, if I've gone ahead and started work for this, we've got a few job statuses. We have on hold, in process, tech done, and QC waiting. Well, a technician's only going to be able to click on the job lines that technicians are available to, and usually as far as they can take it is tech done, right? Because there is usually a completed job line item, but that's going to be for the service writers to go ahead and mark completed themselves. Because they're going to verify the work was done correctly, the pricing is correct on the invoice before they go ahead and mark it as done. So if I'm a tech and I went ahead and started this winterization process, I'm going to mark it as in process. We can see that's now changed. And then I can go ahead and clock in. It's going to tell me you have clocked in onto this job. And at this point, as a mechanic, I could actually close out of the app, or you go to a different web address. I could even log out, and log back in as a different person. My time is still going to be running. Okay, the clock is always going to be running on this job line until a mechanic either punches out for the day or tries to clock into another job, and that's when it's going to go ahead and kick them out of this. So if a technician forgets to clock out and they go to start more work, it will automatically clock them out when they go to punch into the new repair line. So you're never going to be running time on 2 separate job lines. Even though some techs like to do that for warranty purposes, for the billable side of things. So, but yeah, so clocked in on one job at a time, and I don't have to come to this job to clock out of it. If I go clock into something else, it will automatically clock me out. But, or let's say they leave their tablet, they're sitting there, and let's say 2 hours elapses and they finish this winterization. Well, you can go ahead and change that in process job status back to tech done. and we can go ahead and save the changes and clock out. Or, I'm sorry, clock out, then save changes. We do have a question here from Jesse. Are you going to be able to clock into multiple jobs at a time in the future? I believe there is a company setting that your dealership can turn on that allows techs to run time on more than one job at one time. So if that's something your shop does and you need to, you can write into our support team or talk to whoever's assigned, whatever support tech you've been working with, or possibly a trainer, and we can turn that functionality on for you. So there is functionality to do that, but just by default, it's usually turned off. It's usually one mechanic clocking in at a time. Or I'm sorry, one technician clocking into a job line at a time. Okay, so just make note of that if that is something that your shop does, and that feature can be turned on. I believe, if I'm thinking of it correctly. So because I know that there have been shops that do that in the past. Now you can always do you can do clock adjustments if they forgot to run their time or they were clocked into 2, but definitely get with support because there can be more detail on that. So for this particular job line, you're welcome, Jesse. For this particular job line, we've marked it done, we've ran our time, and now I have a few options. Or let's take it a step back. Let's mark it back to in process. Maybe we're not done with it, and let's reclock it back in. Maybe I could not complete this work because I was missing something required for my winterization. Maybe we don't have the right antifreeze, or we don't have whatever was necessary to complete this work. So I could go down here to parts requests. Now, this is like I said, the only real parts functionality aside from part scanning that you can do on the work orders. This doesn't actually add the part to the work order, but what it does do, it allows me to make a new parts request. So for those of you familiar with the parts request portion of our service section, I can basically state, okay, I need a part. This is the user that's requesting it, so that's the technician I am. Here's the request date, the not fulfilled status, it hasn't been fulfilled yet. I can pick a department here. This is pulling from your list of departments in the system, so if you have departmentalized your parts, I can say, hey, I need I don't know even what this would be considered. Let's just say internal parts, antifreeze, part number 56789. Okay. Oh, you can put part number here too. I would put it in as many places as possible, just so someone sees it in the right place. I can save that, and now at the advisor level, they're going to see an outstanding parts request for this ticket, and the parts request version of the software is going to show just that. As a matter of fact, I may even be able to pull this up and show you this. So let me make sure, if anyone could confirm in the chat if this pulled up the desktop version of Infinity. I can't tell. I want to make sure that it's sharing the right one. But if it did, thank you, Jesse. I should be able to go to parts and service here. Go to my parts request section. So over here in the parts section, there's a parts request number 106. Every work order that generates a parts request, it ends up here. And now let's say I'm a parts tech. Well, up here at the very top of my parts requests, if you look, I've got the document that it came from, the advisor, the parts department, so internal parts, the status, the request date, who requested it, my technician, admin, the parts request number, and the bay that the part is, or the vehicle is currently in. So at this point, as a parts request or a parts employee, I could maybe go back to the warehouse, grab that antifreeze, bring it out to the technician. Once I've done that, you can simply open the work order from here. As a, the parts employee would see that there's an active parts request. They would go in here and mark it as maybe we didn't have the antifreeze and we had to order it, so I could mark it as on order. I could say it's been received, so maybe it was on order and it's been received, we just haven't brought it to the tech. But if I walked it out and brought it to the bay, I would mark it as fulfilled. So now it's green, it's letting me know that parts request has been fulfilled, but that shows you how you can, your technicians can parts request from the middle of the vehicle. They can have their tablet sit next to them while they're in the chassis or when they're in the unit, and they can go ahead and make these parts requests, and your parts staff, if they're monitoring the parts request screen, can get those parts out to them. So Jesse asked if this pulls up on the part line of the job. It does not. A parts request is independent of the part, but it would usually be the service writer or whoever is adjusting this work order, so maybe that's the proper chain of command, right? Maybe the parts employee brings the part to the advisor or the writer. The writer then comes onto the parts line and types in antifreeze, gets that particular antifreeze added to the ticket in the correct quantity in the pricing, and then the advisor marks it as fulfilled. So however the steps or the procedure is internally, again, that's up to interpretation of each individual dealership, but the parts request is independent of the parts lines themselves. If I put a part number in the parts request, it doesn't automatically assign it to the work order. It is something that needs to be added by the service writer. But the intention of the parts request is just so a tech can, put this on here without, because most technicians don't have the permissions to add parts lines. So this is their best way of notating that, hey, we need this to complete this job. And then it's usually the parts department or the service writer that's going to come in here and drop the right part number in the right price to make sure everything lines up with the way that you want to bill out that part. You're welcome. And good questions so far, Jesse. Thank you. So we did the parts request. It went through okay. My service writer can close out of it. That parts request drops off of this screen, and ultimately, hopefully you don't have 156 out there. Otherwise, your parts guy's got a lot of running around to do. So, but for the most part, that's the full functionality of the parts request. I'm going to go ahead and bring back that version. So now if you look, we're still on my work order. If I refresh it, it's telling me it's been fulfilled. So maybe I'm a technician and no one has brought my part yet, but it says fulfilled. Well, I'm going to go to my service writer or advisor and notate, hey, someone says they fulfilled this parts request, but I never got my antifreeze. So, and then maybe they've got it on their desk and they hand it over to the tech. So, but they can monitor the status of these parts requests just by checking the status of it. Okay, so that's one of the functionalities that the technicians will have. Note that I'm still clocked into this job. I'm still running time. It's still in process, and that's totally fine. You can check the clock totals for this work order by clicking clock total, and it's going to tell you how many actual hours have been assigned, how many are, how long the job is supposed to take, and you're going to even get a running total of all your unpaid work. So Of got a lot of hours coming to me in my next paycheck. That's a nice bonus. But basically, this is just this unpaid to kind of understand how this works. For those of you that use the service invoicing, on a work order, I'm just going to pull a random work order up here. On your work order, in the flag time section, when your mechanics punch in, it's going to add a line item. I'm going to add a mechanic here, hopefully one that's not clocked in elsewhere. And I can put in so let's just say this guy worked 3 hours. Well, once that time's been paid, especially if you use the payroll version of our software or the payroll module, the system will automatically mark these as paid when the payroll pulls in flag times for that particular period. So if I mark that as paid, I probably don't have the permissions to, but a payroll clerk or someone in payroll would be able to do that. Once it's marked as paid, then looking back on the app, this would be reduced by the amount that was marked as paid. So this is only going to be usable if you do that paid portion of the flag times. Again, if you don't, that's okay. Just let them know that this will probably show a number that's not exactly real. Hopefully this guy's been paid his 41,000 hours he's worked. But you can see here my actual time hasn't been stamped in yet. Well, remember, that's because I'm still clocked in. Only once I've punched out and saved my changes will we show that, and I can show that to you in just a moment. So we'll go ahead and go back and come back to this screen. But I just wanted to show you what the functionality was there. Your techs can do portering. I don't know if any of you are using our lot location or unit locations portion of the software, but if you are, you can have a technician basically state, hey, this unit is in this current lot location, and we're going to go ahead and move it to another space. So maybe we've got Bay 2. I can say, hey, we're moving this to Bay 2. Select new lot. I can say either bring the unit to this new location or go pick up this unit from that location. I'm going to say bring it there. So now it creates a porter task, and if you have any porter technicians in the system, they can utilize this functionality, which is down here. So if I go back out, and we'll come back to this work order. Remember, my tech's still running time here. But let's say you have porter technicians that are assigned strictly to porter units from lot to lot, or from lot location to lot location. If I go back home, there is a porter tasks section of the service tools. And what this does is this is a listing of every porter task that has been assigned. So right now I'm looking at the tasks that have been assigned to my tech, which if I just do this to sent tasks, or let's take out some of our filters and let's see who it has been assigned to. So look at that right there up at the top. So if I look at non-assigned porter tasks, I can see, hey, I need to assign one of my technicians to move this unit and move it to this new location, Bay 2. So if I'm a porter tech, I can go grab the keys, move that unit. When I'm done, mark it as completed, and now the new lot location will be the Bay 2. Okay? I won't go too far into detail with this. This is something where we can usually do specific trainings, but if you are using it, great. It's pretty simple and straightforward. All porter moves end up here, and you simply just mark it off as completed. Maybe I do 4 for the day, refresh the list, and those drop off. It's pretty simple. But that would be how the porter techs or your porter technicians would be utilizing that. And that they're usually restricted to just using this screen, right? They're just checking that list, and basically they'll sit here with their app, and throughout the day they'll refresh it, and if a new move comes up, great. If not, here's all these ones in the past. Well, someone didn't do a good job of cleaning these out, but usually they just refresh this every now and then and make sure there's no porter moves to be made. But now let's go back as our mechanic. So I'm going to go back to mechanic clock. Maybe I've got the invoice punched in, and it'll even tell you up here at the top the job you're currently clocked into. So that's great. So maybe I didn't remember my work order, but there it is right there. Still running time on this winterization job, so you can tell it's still in process. But now let's say we finally, we're going to make some finalized notes here and then finish. So I'm going to go ahead and hit mechanic notes. There's no notes on here. I'm going to do new note. I'm going to say needed antifreeze. Jim brought it over to me, completed the winterization. Okay, we'll save that note. That note will be on here permanently in case anyone ever needs to reference it. Maybe there's damages and we need to notate those. Again, make as many notes as you can. The better visibility between departments, between what's going on, the better. So, these won't show up on the customer's copy of the invoice or anything. So just feel free to put in notes as you see fit. So we'll go ahead and go back. Still back on our job line number 1, still running time. The other 2 items on here are, we talked about, there's invoice pictures, which I talked about. If there's already pictures stored to this work order, if I click that, we'd see them. Otherwise, my camera icon would pull up here and I could take brand new photos, maybe show that take a picture of winterization is not really a good example because that's all kind of internal, but maybe that your body shop fixed some damages and now you take a picture of the damage or the new repairs of the new fender or whatever it is that got fixed, so you can reference it and see, hey, here's where we completed the work. Or add the old photos to see what it looked like previously, however you want to do it. So we'll go back. The last button that I haven't talked about on this screen is this flag times review. So as you saw, clock totals was specific to this one job line. Okay, flag times review is actually going to be an overview of all my hours that I've clocked in and on what days. So you can see here we've got a bunch of hours at on this date, 18 hours on this work order, a couple here, so quite a few. And what we can also do is filter what type of hours. So we're looking at payable hours. Well, I've actually been running flag times today, so we should be able to see my flag times. Again, still 0 hours because I haven't clocked out yet, but as soon as I clock out, this should update. So let's go ahead and do just that. Let's back out. Let's say we're done with our winterization, just like our note said. We'll mark the job as tech done and clock out. You can do it in any order you want. You can clock out first, then change the status, but I'm sure they want the extra seconds on their time. But now, if I check the clock totals, Probably hasn't updated quite yet, but you'll see the actual hours update once that job has been completed, and that's probably just an internal setting of that the dealer our demo has. Some of you may have it so your actual hours fill over when you complete the job. Some come over automatically. Just depends on how your system is set up, but usually you can review that there. And then you'd see the totals, all flag times for my technician here. So I'm curious, hey, what have I done this week? How many hours have I worked? Well, let's go to my actual flag times. And looks like I've run 142. And again, once this invoice updates and is marked completed, I would see the actual time. So it looks like my settings set up for this dealership are waiting for the job to be completed by an advisor before the hours get assigned to me. So not every dealership set up that way. In fact, our demo's kind of set up weird. So, but basically just notate that the clock totals is for the work order that you have pulled up or the line item you have pulled up, and flag times review is kind of like an overarching, hey, these are all of my technician's hours or my own hours to know where I'm at for the week. Without overcomplicating it, or I tried not to, the rest of this is pretty straightforward. I mean, you've seen the functionality, but generally it's going to be marking the repairs with the correct information, clocking in or out, and then making sure that the individual job line is updated with the most recent complaint cause and correction and the mechanic notes, if any. Okay? So if we're done here, I'll go ahead and hit back. Now, if I haven't hit save, it will prompt me to save before I leave, but I hadn't made any changes to the records there, so it didn't ask me to. But now, as you can see, that job line is no longer here. It would require an advisor to reopen that job line, because remember, I marked it as tech done, for it to show back up in my list. So just make sure that if your techs are using the job statuses, that they only mark jobs tech done when they know they're done. You'd hate for them to continue marking stuff as tech done and then have to go bug an advisor to reopen the job line because they made a mistake. They forgot to add their hours or add whatever they forgot to add. So just kind of make sure to express, the importance of double check, triple check your work, and then mark it as done, because otherwise it's more work for the writer to have to go reopen that job line. But from here, I would continue on with this work order. I have one more job line to do. That's the inspection. I'll go ahead and click on it. I'll say inspection completed, winterization. Looks good. Whatever you wanted to put. Maybe they don't have to go into in process to tech done. Maybe I just completely mark it as tech done. Maybe we don't clock in, clock out for this. Obviously, you're doing inspections, so there's probably at least a half hour expected. And you can always remember, you can check that clock totals. It's going to tell me, oh, here's what's assigned out for this job line, because we said it would take half an hour. So I can see this is how long it's supposed to take me. And we'll go back. I've marked it as tech done. I'll go ahead and clock out. We're not going to wait half an hour, but let's just say we did. We'll go ahead and finished with this. Everything looks good. Maybe it's part of the inspection process to take a photo of the unit as it's getting ready to leave the bay. You could do that. But beyond that, save your changes. Go ahead and back out of the work order. And now what you'll find is there are no jobs remaining that are not completed. And you can change what this is filtering for by clicking on it, and it'll show me, hey, here's all my completed jobs. So that the way our permissions are set up now, I wouldn't have to have an advisor to go review this. I could actually, as a technician, come in here and say, oh, I didn't mean to mark it tech done. I'm going to mark it back to in process because we're not quite finished here. So if your technicians do have that permission access to review completed jobs, they're going to see all of those here, and you can toggle between what's been completed, all the jobs, versus not completed jobs. Okay, so, but every tech wants their work order to look like this. There's no remaining jobs for him or her to work on. So at this point, if I go back to my main listing view, what I want you to show you is this. Do you see how we no longer see that work order number? It was originally, what, 124092. I no longer see it because techs only see work orders that they have remaining job lines assigned. So this list of work orders is going to shrink throughout the day. And ideally, a tech has an empty list. That's how they know they've completed all the work they've been assigned. And if they're done and they're flat rate and they need more work, well, they're going to go bug their advisor or the writer to assign them more jobs or more work orders. But as long as they have at least one open line item on a work order, that invoice is going to show in their listing. And like I mentioned before, let's say that this technician made a mistake on the work order we just did. We need to go back and reopen it. The advisor would need to go unmark the job line as completed or tech done, back to open, and then this technician is going to see that work order pop back up. Okay, so again, I try not to overcomplicate this. In fact, the whole intention of this web application was to simplify the process for technicians so they didn't have to punch into the software. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of field the last couple minutes of this webinar for questions. If whatever you've got, if it's unrelated, I'd still be happy to answer it if I can. But anything really related to this, it'd be great to have on the recording. That way we can answer those for other folks that didn't get a chance to sit in. Now I'm going to run through the most recent question here I have from Jesse again. It is stating, how do we access this software via iPhone, or when does it launch? So the web application's live. It is there is a charge associated with it. It doesn't come with the desktop version of Infinity. It's an additional package that is added in. I do not know the pricing. That would definitely be something to take up with your sales representative. It's not too expensive as far as I know, and in fact, a lot of folks have been moved towards it. But the application itself, it's actually a web address. So it's not on the App Store. You're not going to have to download an app. It's actually simply a link that once your dealership has purchased the web package and is utilizing the mobile app, you're going to get assigned a link. So everyone at the dealership will basically get, we'll send it to whoever and they can distribute it. But essentially, they're going to get a link there that you'll give, and you can punch this into an iPhone, into an Android tablet or an Android phone. Anything that can access a web browser, Chrome is recommended. I know that Internet Explorer and Safari do not work with our web app. If you go to one of those browsers with this link, it's just going to offer a download to Chrome. So definitely, as long as the device has Google Chrome on it, and the reasoning is for the camera to work well. But once you have Chrome, it's just simply punching in that web address. It's going to be different than this one. It's going to be specific to your dealership, but it'll be as simple as saving a shortcut to it on your desktop of your phone or your tablet, and then you can just click on the link. So definitely a lot easier to use than an app that you constantly have to update and re-download and deal with that. It's just going to be a web link, and that's all you'll ever need, aside from your login information. So, and again, that's going to be the same username and login that you log in with on the desktop version of Infinity. Another question here we have is, are you going to do a webinar for service advisors? If so, when? If you give me a brief moment here, I believe I have a listing of all of the webinars that are coming up. I do not remember if there is one specifically just for service advisors. Let me check though. So the schedule that I've got, it looks like there's an accounting features on the 8th of January, F&I or deal desking features on the 10th of January. These are all at the same time. They're all 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern, okay? There's a rental module features on the 15th of January, a CRM features on the 22nd of January, a parts features, and a deal desking features. Now, most of these features webinars are actually geared towards the mobile app because this is the direction that we're kind of heading, is to a mobile platform. So generally when you're going to hear like CRM features, deal desking features, this is all going to be tied to the app. So I don't see anything specific to the desktop version of advisors. Basically everything I've shown you today in regards to the mobile app is how advisors would be using the mobile app. But if you're looking for more in-depth advisor training in the desktop portion of the software, it probably would be best to try to schedule a training session, so you can get one-on-one if you have any specific questions. But I do note that the majority of these webinars are geared towards this mobile application. But for like the accounting one, for example, there is no accounting portion of our web app. So the accounting webinar is definitely going to be the desktop version of Infinity. But I think for the most part, this was going to be the majority of the service that we were teaching, which, like I stated, was basically this section here. So, for a desktop version of training, I would contact your sales rep, and if you've got any training credits, you could probably run through most of the service module in about an hour. You're welcome. Anything else? We got a few more minutes. I'll probably hold, since we started about 5 minutes late, well, we'll run this for another 5 or so minutes. If you all have any questions, just anything general like that, I can try to get you information more on the scheduling. I think you guys have been getting email blasts with the hours and the days of the webinars, so I would refer to that, but I can spot check in case you have any questions. But it does look like all the webinars are at the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern. So, and it looks like they're about 5 to 7 days apart, so about one a week. The next one looks like it's going to be on the 8th, like I said, of January, and that again is the accounting features. Okay. Again, I'll leave the floor open. If any of you all have any other questions or concerns, just feedback, let us know. We are going to be trying to post all of these recorded sessions. I don't know if it's going to be on our website or if we're going to just send out links. You'll find out probably soon. I don't know if we're going to do them all at once. Again, we'll know eventually, but you will get a reference to this recording at some point, and you'll be able to review it, use it as a reference in the future for training or whatever will help. So, and again, I thank you all for your time. I know it's tough to be here these last couple of days right before New Year's and after the holiday, but again, I appreciate your time. And if you got anything, I'll leave the floor for a few more minutes. All right, I have another question here right before we jump off from Butch that states, who do we contact to have training on the desktop version of service? You could go through your account rep. If you know who that is, you may not. I wouldn't know without knowing the dealership you're at and who you're assigned to. However, if you want to email training requests, we'd be happy to schedule something if you've got training credits available, or then if you don't, you'd go through your service rep or your sales rep to purchase those. But I'm going to go ahead and post the email here into the chat panel so you know who to, so you can send an inquiry out. It's going to be training@motilitysoftware.com. It's right there. I just typed it into the chat panel. And for those of you, again, on the audio recording, it'll be training@motilitysoftware.com. Just send, hey, we're looking for some training. If you've got credits, we'll call you back and get you scheduled. If there are no training credits, we'll get your account rep, a call out to you, and they'll, talk to you about the training credit per hour and what the pricing is and all that. So, but feel free to send emails to that, and we'll get you squared away. You're welcome. I don't see any other kind of questions coming through. So again, y'all, thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your 2018, and we look forward to talking to you next year. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks again.